Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Man in the Arena. Today we have an awesome guest here with me. His name is Johnathan Lee Iverson. He was the last ever ringmaster for the Barnum and Bailey's Circus, and he was also the first ever African-American ringmaster for the Circus. So, Johnathan, thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I wanted to start with kind of what your path was to becoming a ringmaster. I know you were with the Boys Choir of Harlem and Friends when you were young, even before you were 18. Would you mind talking a little bit about those days with the choir when you were living in New York City?
Well, thank you very much. I was with the Boys Choir of Harlem. The Boys Choir of Harlem, a fantastic organization established by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Walter J. Turnbull, the late, great Dr. Walter J. Turnbull, who really wanted to use the tool of music to really enhance the life of boys in the New York area. Mostly African American, of course, and but it was welcome to everybody. It started in Ephesus Church in Harlem, and it eventually became incorporated as the Boys Choir of Harlem. It was just a wonderful organization I caught wind of as a young preteen. I had always wanted to travel, and they really seemed like a means for me to do so. I never realized it was an elite choir until I got there. It was a lot of hard work my first 18 months. But eventually I would get selected to go on a lot of the wonderful tours, and really it was life-changing. It opened my eyes to just so much of the power of arts education, music, just, culture, and just being around so many different people. I just was very fortunate as a young person. I traveled a great deal. I really just enjoyed the company of some wonderful legendary artists and the company of great dignitaries and statesmen. A highlight of my life was, of course, singing for the late, great Nelson Mandela upon his release when
That's
he
really
visited
awesome.
the States. Yes, and that was a really wonderful occasion. We were at the Kennedy Airport, and I believe we were singing the South African national anthem, I believe. And whatever it was a haze because it was like, oh my goodness, he had been such a giant in our consciousness.
Hmm.
He'd only really been resigned to history for us. And, his release was such a surprise and such a momentous event. And to be selected to be a part of that was just truly special.
That is very, very cool. And I read some articles about you guys when you were in the choir, and you guys performed in front of several presidents. You even performed with Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder. Is that correct?
Oh, that's very true. We actually opened the show for Ray Charles in, I believe it was Dallas, Texas. Performed with Stevie Wonder, the great Stevie Wonder, very, really a kind man. And just, of course, he's one of the greatest musicians to ever walk the earth. I performed with so many wonderful people and shared the bill with the likes of Placido Domingo and Lou Rawls and Lena Horne and Betty Buckley, Quincy Jones. We were on Quincy Jones's wonderful album, A Soulful Celebration. The Handel's Messiah's A Soulful Celebration. We were on the soundtracks for Denzel Washington's first Academy Award winner,
Wow.
which was Glory. Also Spike Lee's Malcolm X and Spike Lee's Jungle Fever. It was just a really adventurous childhood. I also attended the Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts. So I just enjoyed this incredible, rich arts education and sort of double life. I would be in Spanish class one week and in Spain the next week. So it was really remarkable adventure for me.
Your education in Spanish immediately paying off with going over to Spain and
Yeah, one could
living
say
there.
that, of course, being a teen, the whole goal was, can I speak to that pretty Spanish girl? That was the whole goal. But
Absolutely. That's amazing. Did any of the others that were in your choir when you were a kid become something as you did? You obviously became a ringmaster. Did any of them become artists themselves?
Yes, I believe a few did. I believe actually more so on the business end. There were several gentlemen on the business end who I think they're much smarter than me. They went in on the business end of it, and others, they really ventured into different forms of different fields. Some into medicine, some into real estate. A lot of entrepreneurs and things like that. But I think the lessons from the choir really had everything to do with self-determination, being able to be a real good citizen. That was always something that Dr. Turnbull emphasized, that we would be good citizens. He wanted that more for us than us being good musicians. And of course, he set a high bar for our musicality. He himself was an accomplished musician. And so, there's no way in the world you're going to open for the likes of Ray Charles and share the stage with the likes of Stevie Wonder and not have something
Definitely.
of,
Definitely.
of worth. And so we were really reputable as a boy choir. And we enjoyed that reputation. We enjoyed, I think it was a great lesson for us as young people to just see the value of working for something and failing at something and getting up again and learning how to do it better. I think that there's no greater lesson. And I think that's why the arts and sports are so integral to our education. And I think they should be regarded just as much as we do math and science and the like.
I love that. I like that a lot. Moving on to chapter 2, kind of your career as a ringmaster now. How did the position originally come about? How was it presented to you, and how did you audition for the position originally?
It was a happy accident. I was auditioning. My original plan, I had just graduated the Hart School of Music in Hartford, Connecticut, which is part of the University of Hartford. The plan was to really just go to Europe and continue my studies in opera. So that was the trek I was set to do. I needed to raise some money, so I did what I could, and that was audition and see what shows or what programs I could get in to raise some capital. And so upon auditioning for the Fireside Dinner Theater, their Christmas show, and the auditions were held in New York, I happened into the director of the Christmas show, who also happened to be directing Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey.
Hmm.
And it so happened that he was in the market for a ringmaster for the newest edition of Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. None of this was known to me until I received a call later that in the evening after following my audition for the dinner theater, which I got that as well. But I was given the request that they wanted to know if I'd like to try out for ringmaster. I was up against 30 other candidates. It was a rigorous audition process. I must have auditioned 3 different times. First, they had me record a video with the director for the producer. Then there was another live audition somewhere, and then I had a final audition with the late great vice president of talent and production, Mr. Tim Holst, who actually came to Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, where we were performing the dinner theater show. And he auditioned me there, and then he interviewed me, and then the rest was history.
That's really cool. So what was your first set of shows like with the Circus? Were you nervous going into it? Did you have all the scripts down and everything like that? And you felt
You know,
good going into it?
the first few shows, it just was an adjustment. I realized how prepared I actually was. It wasn't so much the performing aspect. I didn't have butterflies at all because I'd been performing so long. And I was actually shocked that I wasn't as nervous as I thought I might be, because it was just a new thing. I was in an arena, not a theater.
Right.
And it was very obvious and clear to me that the circus is a living, breathing organism. And it's a lively show that can change on a dime. So no show is, we always would joke in the circus world, you're never going to have a boring day. No show is the same. Sure, I had a script and lines, but I could tell you I had never performed a show in the many, many shows we would perform that went according to as planned. It never went accordingly. Nothing ever went smoothly. You
Hmm.
know, there was always something, for better or for worse, that was there. And so my method in really learning my scripts were, I always learned them as best as I could and get them down to memory, so it could just, I would have it in my bones. That's how I would
Hmm.
describe it. And that's how I would always tell you know, young acting students and theater students, and you know, opera, have your script down to where you know it as good as you know your name, because you're going to, life is going to happen
Hmm.
during that show. Something is going to go off where you're going to have to know how to pivot. You're going to have to know how to expand some things within the script. You're going to have to really use your creativity at some point. And so knowing the script as well as you can is really the foundation for everything else. You know, they always said about the great Michael Jordan, the legendary basketball player, was that, you know, all those fabulous moves we'd see him do in the game, he never practiced those. What he practiced constantly was his fundamentals. You know, same thing with the late great Kobe Bryant, and same thing with Floyd Mayweather Jr. You
Yeah.
know, if you look at their training, they're not doing anything sensational. They're just biting down on their fundamentals, and
Hmm.
they do, as a great juggler friend of mine, Paris, the hip hop juggler, told me. You know, you have to fall in love with the ugly, the ugly work, the ugly mundane work. If you're going to do great things, you have to fall in love with the just dry, mundane, not so
Right.
glamorous fundamentals. And once you get those down, that's where the magic happens, when the live show happens, because there's a new energy that
Hmm.
comes out. But if you're steady on your fundamentals, it's really that's where all those amazing highlights occur. And that's something I actually learned from the Boys Choir of Harlem. I mean, we did so many wonderful things. We had so many great adventures, but the great thing I remember most of all was those ugly, mundane rehearsals where we would just do things over and over again. And of course, as a kid, you think it's torture, you think
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
horrible. You're like, what
Absolutely.
is wrong with these people? And then you get out there and you see, you bear fruit,
Hmm.
and you realize, oh my goodness, we have so much stamina. Oh my goodness, wow, I could pivot. This is, you know, I remember we were doing, it was so crazy. We had so much energy. So they had overbooked um, our concert. We were somewhere, and it was requested of us if we could do two additional shows in the same night,
Jeez.
because they undersold it. They didn't think we were, and no, people were coming out in droves. And
Wow.
so, you know, our director came to us, and he used to frighten us, but he came pleading, kind of it. He said, "Listen, you know, we'll cut some things in the show, but listen, I need you guys to, you know, we'll fix this next year, but I need you guys to come through for me, and we're going to do three shows tonight." And we did.
Wow.
And everybody had the energy and had the focus to do it. And that came from all those boring rehearsals, all those
Hmm.
boring warm-ups, and all the things that we had been doing before, that it's just mundane, boring. Oh goodness, what is this again? And that, having that bedrock is what allowed us to be able to pivot the way we did, and do those three shows.
Hmm. I'm sure that prepared you well for the circus too, where you're doing 3 or 4 shows a day, right?
You know, it very much did. I think more so with, in every way, really, in every way. I mean, obviously, I had I learned proper vocal technique.
Hmm.
I learned proper performing etiquette. I learned how to also carry myself socially. And that's a big deal, because
Yeah.
being ringmaster, you are the face of the institution.
Hmm.
And you're going to be, you know, I always compared being the ringmaster to like a poor man's presidential campaign. I mean, because you're always out in the public, you're always meeting people. Once that suit and top hat goes on, you're an ambassador. So in addition to performing your duties, You're doing countless press junkets and special events, and all sorts of things.
Hmm.
And you have to have the stamina, the enthusiasm, the focus, and the experience to really endure and to make the best of every effort, every moment you're out there.
Definitely. When you talked about the on the fly changes during the show, were most of those due to something that the animals were doing, or was it something that just couldn't be controlled normally during the show? Was it were elephants walking off where they shouldn't go, or trapeze artists doing things that weren't part of the standard set, or what were most of the changes due to?
Believe it or not, the most predictable part of the circus are the animals.
Really?
You never have a problem with four-legged mammals. It's the two-legged mammals you
That's
got to
crazy.
worry about. Oh, the animals, of course not, because animals are simple.
Hmm.
This is it's not complicated. People who don't know anything complicated. Animals, you just feed them and treat them respectfully for what they do, and they'll cooperate. It's
Yep.
really not hard. I mean, it's a lot of work. You have to be consistent. I'm no animal trainer, but I know the best, and I watch them, and that's not a glamorous a vocation.
No, no, not at
That is
all.
not a vocation that you go in to get rich. You go into it because you really actually just really love being around animals. It's not
Hmm.
something for me. I'm a New Yorker. The most exotic thing I grew up with was squirrels. So I'm not that guy.
Pigeons.
I don't get that fuzzy feeling or whatever, but I respect what people who are in that trade, they do. And
Hmm.
those who do it correctly, it's really a lifestyle. They don't have days off. Everything revolves around the animals and their need and what they have. And the number one thing is you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent in your attitude. You have to be consistent in their treatment. You have to be consistent in really being able to be fluent with how they're doing that day. As the great Alexander Lacey, one of the great lion tiger trainers in the world, told me upon working with him, he said every morning he gets up and he says, I don't just work them out physically, but before that, I have to check and see, I have to look at them to see if psychologically they are uh, capable or ready to perform that day.
Right.
I mean, it's a relationship, and
That's cool.
he's told me. I mean, I didn't notice it much, but he said, believe it or not, I don't always take the full number of cats out there. You may not notice it, but and he said, I don't always take the full number of cats out there to perform because sometimes they're just not in it.
Yeah.
They just, what are you going to do with a 600-pound tiger? You're going to literally, what are you going to do? You're going to
You know,
make
force them to.
right, right. I mean, people come up with some absurd things. You can't make an
Mhm.
8,000-pound elephant do what it doesn't want to do. It's the second smartest land mammal on earth. It
Exactly.
knows it can kill you.
Mhm.
So it's not like you're going to force these animals to do anything. You have to build a relationship. You have to build a trust.
Mhm.
And then that's how that goes. Some animals take to performing. They're like human beings in that sense. Every animal has their own peculiar personality. And
Mhm.
I used to watch it. There were elephants on the show. There was one particular elephant. I couldn't go past her without her, slobbing me with her doggone trunk on my face. She was an attention getter. That's who she was. She
That's
loved
funny.
attention. And that's who she was. There was another elephant, on the other hand, where our trainers would warn us, you don't want to be alone with her because she's mischievous. As she would.
Hmm.
She would do like little sneaky things. And I'd see those types of personalities throughout all the animals. All animals are like that.
Right.
They all have their little, some are jerks,
Mhm.
some are bullies, some are real tender, some really love attention, some are very affectionate, some are really awesome performers, some just do just enough,
Mhm.
because they know, well, I come out here, they're gonna like me anyway. I mean,
Right.
so it's all of those things that go into it. And a good animal trainer knows that, and a good animal trainer acts accordingly, never loses their patience because they're going to put themselves in danger first and foremost.
Mhm.
So the
That's
animals
really
were
interesting.
yeah, the animals were always predictable. That was the least. I don't even, and to be quite frank, I don't recall any incidences with an animal ever
Hmm.
during a performance. I remember a couple of times maybe an animal act was cut short because, it just became clear that, maybe an elephant or a horse they weren't going to do the
Hmm.
trick
Wasn't their night.
for whatever, right, for whatever reason, and they just, signal me, and I could, okay, so we got to wrap this up.
Hmm.
But that was about it. And if you're talking about animals just losing it, please, they ate well and they slept well and they were treated well and
That's really cool.
they enjoyed themselves. But people, on the other hand, most of our mishaps really were, and I was very fortunate. Most of my mishaps that I had to cover for were just technical things. Maybe something in the rigging wasn't correct, and
Hmm.
thank goodness we have a very alert and aware floor crew that would catch certain things, and so they would signal to me if I could stretch, a section to buy them time to rectify a situation. That's mostly what I had to cover. There would be some accidents. You know, some worse than others that you had to cover. You had to keep the show going, and you had to make sure the artist was in good care.
Right. Right. Who would you say outside of the actual show itself are the kind of most interesting group of people that are involved with the circus? In terms
Ooh,
of
I
people
was.
that you just found interesting talking to? Was it the clowns, trapeze,
Oh,
trainers?
yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I would say everybody really has their kind of thing, right? I mean, when I was young and single, of course, the most interesting were the production ladies and the
Yeah.
dancers. You're
Hmm.
running trying to see who you can date. These are the most beautiful people in the world with the most glorious and capable bodies ever. So everybody was exotic to each other.
Hmm.
Um, as far as personalities and stories, hands down, it would be the clowns. I mean, just interesting people, very interesting people. The musicians as well. We always had a live band um, in the show, and it always shocked people because it seemed so seamless. But the music and the musical legacy of Ringling Brothers is integral, and it's always been great. But I would hang out with a lot of the folk, gentlemen from the band, or the musicians rather, from the band. We had some ladies as well, um,
Hmm.
mainly band members, a couple of every now and then a couple of acrobats. It just, I think it's interesting. I think it all depends on just a certain energy you get from people. I always found some trapeze artists to be really fun to be around, and really enlightening to be around.
Hmm.
Just but I kind of bounced around. And that would be in line with what a ringmaster would do. He's a
Yeah,
friend to
definitely.
all. He's a friend to all, but a friend to no one.
Hmm.
He doesn't have favorites, and that's true, because you're going to have to represent all of these folks with a certain enthusiasm,
Hmm.
and a certain respect that you want the audience to um, enjoy, and know what you're talking about. So, um, yeah, I mean, I kind of bounced around. I always found, I personally, I think circus people are just far more interesting than everybody else in entertainment. They
Oh, it
just,
have to be.
yeah, because the story, because you're not playing an animal trainer, you're not playing a trapeze artist, you're not
Hmm.
playing a clown. You are those things, and so everything in your life revolves around that. And so that's really interesting. And of course, the high risk.
Yeah.
It's just different, depending on your discipline. It's just, to see how people operate, and how they prepare themselves, and why they would even embrace a life, because circus is not a backup plan.
Mm-mm.
It's not like somebody goes, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll run away with the circus. No, I mean,
Mm-mm.
this is something you come into because you feel pulled into it. You feel it's a calling, it's an opportunity, or it's something you're born into. That's usually how it works. But at all times, it's something that you you either embrace or you don't. So it's one of
Right.
those things. And few people don't embrace the life
Hmm.
because it's such an incredible and highly unusual way to live.
Yeah, definitely. And I did want to talk about that a bit. Your life on the road with the circus had to have been extremely interesting. You guys are training from city to city, correct?
Oh yes. Well, before we even get on the road,
Mm-hmm.
we have what's classically called the winter quarters, and so that's where we set up shop to build the show, so to speak. We rehearse, we build the show, work out the kinks, and to be quite frank, it's something we're going to do throughout the entire season
Mm-hmm.
of the tour. But we really lay down the foundation of what it is we're looking to create and push forth in our winter quarter season. And that's about like 4 to 5 weeks of just strict, intense rehearsal, show bill, recreating things we thought might go, and then, oh no, this doesn't work. Really just investing in putting the magic together.
And this is in between the traditional tours, correct? So when you're not actually touring from city to city, you're in your winter quarters in Sarasota?
And that's correct.
Okay.
Well, for me, it was we were in Tampa.
Oh,
We were
okay,
in
nice.
we were in the Tampa area, and so we would, at least in my last year, we were in the Fell Studios, and so they have, I think, the second largest property in all of
Mhm.
Florida, and it was wonderful. I mean, it's just
Nice.
great. They had all this space where we could really run the show like if we were in an arena,
Mhm.
and how it was set up, so we could really get used to that that energy and that feeling. But here's the thing too: with every um, venue we would visit, we would also rehearse again, not a full out rehearsal, but we would just, get a feel of the place, check the rigging, run a couple of the numbers so the animals could get used to it, so we could just get used to different spacing, because sometimes you have to shift things, depending on how the building is set up. The
Mhm.
riggers have to set it up in a different way to accommodate artists and things of that nature. Safety first, of course, but it's always really checking the logistics of what you're going to do, because again, this is a live, living, breathing entity.
Yep. Yep. When you were actually on tour, what was your kind of sleeping arrangement like? What was a day in the life for you on a show day and maybe a travel day?
Travel day was the best day because I was on the world's largest privately owned train.
Mm-hmm.
And at least I did, it was like we called it a city without a zip code. And it was set up like any city. I always used to joke with people. I lived in the suburbs. I had my own, basically, I had half a train car with my family. And my kids were very cooperative. We let them know, look, mommy and daddy are going to be out cold. And so you can go watch your little shows. Here's the snacks. They knew what to do. They didn't get in any trouble. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe mom would sleep for half the day and I would sleep for the other half. Because, after a show run, you are just brutally tired.
Oh, I bet.
And then we get up, probably watch a movie together, have some snacks or something like that. But it's just, I mean, there's nothing like it. It's fun, it's intimate, it's beautiful. It's the greatest way to see the country. It's the greatest sleep you're gonna get. I mean, just that the chucking of the train and the way it moves. It's like having a mobile massage or something. A regular show day, you're just in that mode. You're running off of adrenaline. You may be doing some press junkets throughout the day and events as well, especially depending on the uh, particular date. If we were in one of the major cities like New York City or Los Angeles, California, where there's a lot of press or stuff, we're likely going to be a lot busier, maybe have more shows than we usually would. But either way, it's going to be an adventure during the show week. Of course, then if you can imagine, if you're traveling that much, you tend to build relationships throughout the country. So, you may run into family and friends who you're making arrangements for, and all sorts of things, doing favors for people, what have you. It's quite festive.
Mm-hmm. And I heard that you mentioned your wife and your kids. I heard that you got married in between shows.
I
in between
certainly
circus
did.
shows?
Yes.
What was
It was
that like?
Oh, that was great. It was November 15th, 2001 in at the United Center in Chicago, Illinois.
Awesome.
We actually met the minister the day before, and it was a funny encounter. We uh, we just happened into this Presbyterian church, and we asked for a minister. We wanted to get married, and she sat us down and gave us some counsel, and then we told her when we intended on doing it, and she looked at us like we were crazy, which I don't blame her. And we told her, well, we'd like to we'd like to get married on. We met her on a Wednesday. We said we'd like to get married on Thursday the next day, and she said, "Oh no, I can't do that. I'm taking my son to the circus." And we said, "Great, can you do it after the show?" And she's just like,
That's amazing.
And we told her, yeah, we're in the show. She's like, and she just like, she said, I guess. So she came in her frock and everything, and it was
Hmm.
hilarious. And, we really kept it low key, honestly. She came in her frock, and right in between shows, we went to a suite in the United Center,
Hmm.
the house that Michael Jordan built. And
Yeah. Yeah.
we had a small ceremony, and that was that, and we've been going at it for 19 years now, so it worked out
That's
for
really
us.
awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Um, with your kids, what was their childhood like on the road? I'm sure it was extraordinarily interesting, and them looking back on it and maybe talking to other people their age, they probably realized just how interesting that was. I've heard a little bit about the circus school that is built at each city, and if you wouldn't mind elaborating on what that is like, I would absolutely love to hear it.
Oh, absolutely. My children, their childhood completely trumped mine. I always wanted to give my children, what I had growing up. I had a really beautiful childhood, especially when I ventured into the Boys Choir of Harlem, and theirs just blew mine away. I mean, we have not been apart from each other since they've been born.
Hmm.
So my children now, respectively, are 15 and 11. We've always traveled, played, worked together. And I've always reminded them how utterly fortunate, um, utterly fortunate they are to have such a privilege, because obviously most any parents, I would tell them, rich, poor, whatever, um, you don't get that. You're not going to be around your family all day, every day.
Hmm.
Only in a circus was I afforded that. And as a result, I always believed that I had the greatest gig in show business. I was doing what I love to do with the people I love the most. And so I was making a living while having a life. I didn't have to, I didn't have to have this distant relationship with my wife and my kids, and not being there. They could be there with me. And so my wife, she originally came onto the show as a dancer by way of Brazil. She was the dance captain and translator for the first troupe of Brazilian dancers we had. And she would advance during her career to becoming production manager. And that's the person who oversaw the entire show. And so it was in her hands, the entire performing aspect of the show, the multi-million dollar entity that it was in her hands. She captained that ship. And so essentially she
That's
was my
awesome.
boss, which
Hmm.
my daughter would love to tell people. My daddy's the ringmaster, but mom's the boss. She would love doing it. And she's a little sassy something. She's wonderful though. My children, their adventures were, as you can imagine. I mean, one day your backyard is Disney World, the next day Disneyland, the next day it's, the St. Louis Arch. They really got a hands-on appreciation of this great nation and its sites. We had some really wonderful teachers. We would set up school and our nursery in each venue. So, of course, they would mark out a particular space in every venue,
Hmm.
and in every venue we visited to have schooling and, of course, nursery services as well. Obviously, when you have schooling that close, it just makes it that much easier for us as parents to be involved. And so it was just a wonderful thing. Um, so that's what they would do. They would do school all year round, and it was 4 hours a day, and then they would venture over to the nursery and be with their friends and stuff like that. Sometimes I'd let them stay in my dressing room if they wanted to, if the dressing room was big enough and they just wanted to hang out with dad or whatever, and I had some toys or whatever, I'd let them stay in my dressing room. Or their mother, my daughter, for instance, would hang out with her mother when she was a dancer in the dancer's dressing room, which explains why my daughter thinks she's part Beyonce and part Elsa, because she was around all of these fabulous, gorgeous, and
Mm-hmm.
really incredible women, who, that's where she learned how to walk in a dancer's dressing room, and being around these incredible women. I mean, she was doing makeup early. Usually you don't want your kids, your daughters, to do that until they're a certain age, but
Mm-hmm.
it would have been like, I mean, it would have been torment not to
Yeah,
do that.
impossible.
Yeah, because
Everyone's
I'm
wearing
like,
makeup.
right, that's what she saw. So she really learned showmanship, and but also she learned hard work,
Mm-hmm.
watching all of these amazing women, because as glamorous as they are, and as feminine and just epic as the classic circus showgirl is, she's also very, very tough.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a workhorse, and she gets it done sometimes even better than the men. I mean, so it was a great thing for her to see. It was a great thing for both my son and daughter to see, um, women who were actually producing the show, women in positions of operating and managing the show like their mother. They also lived in the time of Obama, when President Obama was their president, and their mother's from Brazil. So when Brazil elected their first female president, Juma, I believe her name was, something like that. I'm sure I butchered her name, but
You
um,
know more than me.
yeah, they were in that kind of atmosphere. And so also seeing their father in the center of the show, guiding it, I think it really gave them a sense of unconscious confidence
Mm-hmm.
in their own abilities and what they wanted to do. And and so I think it was just an extraordinary existence for them. And they're just really great kids. Their extracurricular activities were actually, imagine your gym class is with a world-class acrobat. So you're learning the real stuff. And they
Yeah.
did. They learned how to really stretch. They learned their splits. My daughter was doing some contortion work for a while with a wonderful Mongolian coach for some time. It was a lot of fun,
That's amazing.
for them. And they carved out their own work ethic from that. I would watch them, especially my daughter, how, like, she's so competitive. So she would just really work so hard to get certain things done, and it paid off, because they ended up with jobs of their own on the show. In our last years with the show, my son actually played me in
That
our
is
very
awesome.
last tour, and his sister was his understudy. So it was really, really great for them, and I was really proud of them. And I told them, I said, who could put that on their resume? This was your first job ever, so it was
Wow.
fun.
Yeah, my first job, coffee shop. Their first job in the circus
Yeah, yeah.
as ringmaster in training. That's
And
amazing.
I can tell you, it was really, it was great for me to see them do that, because I didn't realize how much they watched me
Mm-hmm.
till I saw, my son get out there and do his thing. It was so much. It was so intense. It was, the director actually gave me a note for me to do me following him. I said, "You got to be crazy." It was so funny. He said, "You see how your son did that?" I said, "Yeah, real
Mm-hmm.
funny." But he was really doing it up well. I mean, he really had everything down, and it was his own charm. It was
Mm-hmm.
his own sense of instincts and things like that. And I was really proud of him. And my daughter, she came in, she did the same thing, and they really just had fun with that. And it's a great memory that they'll always have.
That's very cool. I had one more question for you because I know you have to go here in a few. What were once the news came, I believe it was in 2016 or 2017 that the circus was going to be closing down. What were the last few shows like for you guys on tour? You with all of the performers who have been there for so long.
Well, those last few shows it was like all of a sudden we became Hamilton overnight. I think it was really more for the audience than us. They realized what they were losing. They were losing a piece of Americana.
Hmm.
So many people, what I kept hearing over and over again, people were in a very apologetic way were saying, I neglected it so long, every year, oh, I'll go next year, I'll go next year, and now it won't be here. For us as performers, when you're a performing artist, you're used to moving on. That's what you do.
Hmm.
And so everybody knew eventually you're going to have to leave the show. Eventually you're going to have to, grow up and go into the real world, I guess, right? But you never thought it would leave us. And this was something I was hoping to bring my own grandkids to, God willing, hey, this is where it all started for me and your grandmother. And, that's was my hope, that it would be there for uh, Americans in the future. And goodness knows, as polarized as we are right now, we really do need a good circus, a good
Yes,
circus. And I think,
absolutely, we do.
the message of the circus is about unity. It's about coming together. Circus is a circle, and from the Latin root for circle, and there's no hierarchy. There's no race, there's no religion, there's no sexual orientation, there's no nationality. Your citizenship is circus.
Hmm.
And, as long as you show up, as long as you do what you're supposed to do, as long as you honor the show and your colleagues, and most importantly, your audience, their time and imagination and their money, that you're embraced. And I really, when we closed, that we got that announcement January 14th, 2017, I was in Miami. My show was in Miami. The other show, I believe, was in Orlando. It was heartbreaking only because, I just felt so terrible for fans I knew
Hmm.
personally, who every year we would get to those locations, and you knew those particular fans, they had their seats ready. Some would come multiple times during the runs, and they were so giving. That's the thing. Some would come with meals and snacks, and some would come with their art, and it was a big deal to them. And for many people, it was a real healing agent to have the circus in their lives. I met several autistic children who their parents would say to me, I'll never forget this family in Jacksonville. The mother, her sons were with her, and they're dressed in their circus regalia. They're having a blast. And lovely lady, she grabs me, they like envelop me with hugs. And she said, you got to understand, this means so much to us. You see this, my son over here, he was dressed like he was a ringmaster. You can't tell, but he's autistic. He didn't say his first words until he was 4 years old, and it was here at Ringling Brothers, his
Wow.
first words. And I'd heard several stories like that from clowns. Our clowns seem to have a way of breaking into that, whatever that spectrum is, and really knowing how to communicate to those kids. And to the point where like, if you're not careful, you don't know they're not autistic, because it's almost like they found their place. It's
Hmm.
like they just fit right in. But the reality is everybody fits in.
Hmm.
It's circus. You just have to be genuine. And
Yep.
it's a very accepting place. And I just thought that's the thing I didn't want people to miss. I didn't want people to not have that anymore. And we don't have it right now. And God
Mm.
knows we need it.
Yep. Yep. I would love to go to a nice circus right now, especially with the lack of any kind of entertainment these days. The circus would be
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, we have some things going on. There are a lot of different shows that are really, becoming more creative, doing a lot of online offerings. Sure, it's not the same thing. I mean, it's nothing like being right under the
Hmm.
big top or in the arena or wherever. But it's something, and a lot of these offerings are really pretty good. They're really good.
Yeah.
Bernardo's Circus is one. In fact, he started doing live shows again. He actually figured out how to keep it safe and socially distant
Hmm.
with the Bernardo's Circus. I'm a part of the Omnium Circus, which is a new show,
Oh,
a
cool.
new organization. Yeah, so we're gonna have our first online show in December. And I've done some other things with Lone Star Circus and I mean, it's been just a lot of fun. It's different. It's different sitting in front of your computer and going, "Hey, how you doing, boys and girls?"
Yeah,
I did
definitely.
some work with the wonderful Bindlestill Family Circus as well. It's very different.
Hmm.
I miss the energy of the crowd. I miss
Yeah.
interacting with the ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls because, it's like I think the ringmaster gives them permission to
Definitely.
just put their hair down and really have a good time. And that's what
Hmm.
I want for all people. When you come to the show, there's no politics, there's nothing divisive. It's really just having fun, not
Yep.
taking yourself seriously. It's for you to actually not sit back, not relax, but sit on the edge of your seat and really just enjoy just being entertained, just being taken away and watching the highest expression of human and animal artistry.
Hmm. Yep, that's really awesome. Can I ask you one more question just because I almost
Sure.
forgot? I'm a big WWE fan. I'm just very interested in the business side of WWE, and I read up that you had a tryout with WWE to be what I assume would be a ring announcer. And
Yes, sir.
I
Yeah, I
wanted to
wasn't
know
fighting.
I I wanted to know how that went. What was that tryout like, and who was it with?
Well, it was actually with their what I call their farmers company,
Hmm.
NXT.
Yes.
So that's where they start everybody out at. And so, they flew me in. It's an incredible business.
Hmm.
It's an incredible. They have such care to detail. I was pleasantly um, surprised to just learn of how diverse so many people are in their interests.
Hmm.
You're thinking these maybe just big brawny athletes or whatever, but they're not. A lot. Yeah, you had some people with PhDs, and
Yeah.
you had announcers. One of the announcers I met, she was like in uh, molecular biology or something. But she said,
Wow.
I always love being in front of a camera. And, you see her, she's a lovely woman and very talented. And you go, yeah, okay, I get it.
Makes
Molecular
sense.
biology isn't as exciting, but just it's an incredible company. We just couldn't come to terms as far as payment was concerned.
Yep.
But, listen, I still think the world of, I mean, a lot of us, I grew up when it was WWF.
Yep. Yep.
I had the privilege of seeing the great Andre the Giant live at Madison Square Garden. That was like one of
Wow.
the greatest things that happened in my young life. I was like,
Yes,
oh,
absolutely.
Andre the Giant. He was the dude, man.
Hmm.
But it's an incredible company. I had a wonderful audition that they wanted me, and I really wanted to do it, but we just couldn't work things out financially. But who knows? I think one of my old man dreams is I want a lounge show in Vegas with an orchestra, and I want to be a ring announcer for all the major boxing matches because
Oh, that would
Michael
be
Buffer, he
incredible.
can't do that forever, man. He's the
No,
greatest. I think he's wonderful. I think
Yeah.
Jimmy Lee Jr. is awesome too. I'd love to do because I'm a huge fight fan, man.
Hmm.
That would be I'm like that's all I want. I
That
just
would be
want to go to
amazing.
Vegas, have a Vegas show,
Hmm.
and be a boxing announcer. I
Yep.
mean, that's not much. I mean, God could give me that one. That's no big deal.
Yeah. We had UFC come to Capital One Arena where I work
Yeah.
in DC this past November. It was their first time there in 10 years. And
Wow.
I was so busy throughout the night, I wasn't really able to poke my head out too much. But the one time that I was able to was right when Bruce, and I made it happen. I kind of did it very much with the thought in my brain, but I went out and saw Bruce Buffer announce the introductions for the main event. And it was absolutely incredible. I
Yeah,
just wanted
he's
to see the introduction.
electrifying, man.
All I
He's
wanted to see.
something else, man. He listen, those guys are serious. They're great announcers. I
Hmm.
love their energy. I love the passion. I love how they set the tone for each one of those
It's
fights. I mean,
amazing.
I'd love to. Oh gosh, I mean, that's a big dream of mine. I think that's something I'd probably do, like a little older, because I think there are other things I'm supposed to do. But look, I would jump on that opportunity so
Yeah.
fast. Because I'm a big fight fan, and I respect athletes, period. But fighters have a special place in my
Oh,
heart.
yes, they absolutely
Definitely.
do. They're
Yeah.
incredible. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. This was really, really fun. Hopefully, we'll all see you maybe in a few years down the line on our television sets with UFC or with with somebody
Right.
else.
Right.
In the meantime, we'll keep up with what was the name of the circus that you're involved with now?
Yes. Omnium. Omnium.
Omnium. Okay, we'll keep up with
Yes.
Omnium and their show coming out in December. Thank you
Yes.
very much, Jonathan. This was awesome.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Keep the circus alive inside
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you very much.